the teen librarians from the Arapahoe Libraries, and we are going to do a couple book talks today, hopefully get you some ideas of some interesting stuff to read. So my name is Bridget, and my pronouns are she and her.
My name's Catherine. My pronouns are also she and her.
I'm Lauren, pronouns she and her.
And so we'll get started with our book talks. We're all going to give 3, and hopefully you'll find something you're interested in. Lauren is going to go first.
Yeah, I'll start us off with Every Reason We Shouldn't. And it is a really fun romance. If you like Jenny Han to All the Boys I Loved Before, this one will be perfect for you. Olivia has big dreams of being in the Olympics for ice skating. She had a bummer review though, so now she's just working at her parents' ice skating rink, kind of getting her courage up, doing trainings and things. And that's when Jonah moves into town and comes in. He is training to be in the Olympics for ice skating as well. He's very competitive. He does all kinds of competitions, and instantly they hit it off, as you can imagine. And it is a super fun romance from there. There's Korean food, roller derby, friends. I really loved it. It's super lighthearted and fun. So if you want something fun to read, that would be Every Reason We Shouldn't.
So the first book I'm going to talk about, since you mentioned Korean food, I'm going to start by talking about this book Meal, which is a graphic novel. It's not about Korean food, but it's about food. That's why it reminded me. And it's really entertaining if you were looking for something a little bit quirky and a little bit sweet, hint of romance. Good choice. It's about this kid or teenager, Yarrow, who is moving to a new town, and she's specifically moving because there's this restaurant that has just opened with this kind of famous chef who primarily cooks with insects as the protein for their dishes, and Yarrow really wants to work there. She's super passionate about eating insects and raising insects and all this stuff. I was not expecting that. You should be able to guess from the cover. If you're looking at the cover, you could perhaps guess that this was about bugs. For whatever reason, all of that escaped me, and I was completely surprised when I got to this part. It's really interesting. There's sort of this little bit of drama happens. She kind of struggles with her interview. Things go wrong, and then she's got to try and figure out how she can maybe still get to work there. This is kind of her dream. One of the other things about it, at the end of the book, there are recipes that you can make using various insects. I'm not totally convinced how comfortable I would be doing this, but it was really interesting, and some of them do sound good. If I could maybe get over my personal, it's not really a phobia, but my reluctance about the shape of insects, some of the recipes sound cool. So this one would be one to give a try if you're looking for something a little different.
Somewhat related, if you want to try it. Most of the time the insects aren't in the shape of the insects. So the Denver Museum of Nature and Science has cricket chips, and the crickets are actually ground down into flour, and then they look like a potato chip. You can't actually tell it's a cricket at all.
That is something I would maybe have a better time trying. I would try that. Eating an entire cricket, I would struggle, but I think I might try the chip. That's really good to know.
My first recommendation is Goddess in the Machine by Laura Beth Johnson. If you want epic sci-fi that I just found super fascinating, it takes place very far in the future. The main character is Andra, and the story starts off with her being cryogenically frozen. She's being put into cryosleep to travel. Earth is about to no longer be habitable, and so she is being sent to another planet to colonize. She's supposed to be asleep for 100 years, and then the next chapter she is waking up, and what she discovers is that it is 1,000 years later. For some reason she wasn't woken up when she was supposed to, and the people who are on the planet where she is, she's not sure where she is really, they think she's a goddess and they are prepared to worship her, but they also think that she is going to fix all of their problems. This book has so many fascinating twists and turns as the story unfolds and you discover what happened, what went wrong. And the other really interesting piece is that half of the book is written in dialect, so it's far enough in the future, and humanity has evolved to the point that the English language is no longer recognizable completely as what we speak, and so all of the other characters speak in this interesting dialect, and I really highly recommend listening to the audiobook, because it is one of those where you kind of feel like you know what they're saying, but it's different enough that it was really useful for me to actually hear them speaking to be able to understand better. So that's Goddess in the Machine. Again, I highly recommend it if you want some exciting sci-fi.
Awesome. So the next one I'm talking about is a thriller. If you're looking for something with a really good mystery and twist that you're still trying to figure it out as a reader, it's Like Never and Always is the title. And Liv and Morgan have been best friends forever. And one night they're in a really bad car accident, and Liv wakes up and everyone around her is calling her Morgan, even Morgan's own family. And so now she's trying to figure out what is going on. That's not her. She's trying to navigate this life that isn't hers and figure out what is happening, what happened to her friend, and just the whole situation. The whole time you're trying to figure it out as well, which I really liked. It's first person perspective. You feel like you are her as well. So if you want a thriller mystery, I really like that suspense. The ending I really like because there's mostly closure, but it leaves just enough room to question and kind of make your own conclusions on some things, which I really liked about it as well. So if you want a thriller, Like Never and Always is I highly recommend.
So my next one is nonfiction. This one is Things That Make White People Uncomfortable by Michael Bennett. And so there are two copies of this book. One is the young adult version and one is the adult version. You could read either. The biggest difference between them, the one for adults is longer and has more profanity in it. So know that going in. But there's such a good story. It's if you aren't familiar with him, he's a football player. He recently retired from the NFL like this year, I believe. Used to play for the Seattle Seahawks, several other teams. And this is his story both about football, of like playing football since he was a kid and kind of up through high school, college, and getting like what does the draft look like. If you're curious about that stuff, there's a lot of those details. There's a lot of details about the game. He talks about other players, he talks about plays, he talks about the Super Bowl. And then the parts that I'm not a big football fan, so know that going in. I found those parts less interesting. But one of the things that I really loved about it is he talks about a lot of other things. He talks about all of the pieces that kind of go around football. So things like what is it like to deal with all of the injuries that come with being a professional athlete? What is it like to be a Black man in the NFL? What is it like to be a Black man in America? And a lot of the conversations that he kind of starts and the things that he's talking about are conversations our country is having right now, especially when we look at what's going on with professional ball. So like the NBA, the NHL, various other sports right now, there's a lot of stuff going on in a conversation about what it's like for athletes in these sort of positions to communicate with the American public. So it's fascinating. There's humor in it, really interesting, and it's pretty intense. So if you are curious and you want something that kind of blends genres and is really topical, this one is a good choice.
On the lighter side, but still really good, and it does deal with some issues. My next recommendation is You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. I was drawn in by the cover of this book. First of all, it's like so joyful. I love it so much. And the story is great. It was just what I needed right now. The story follows Liz Leidy, who is one of the few Black girls in her entire town, really a small town, Indiana. And she is on prom court. So she is competing with several other girls to try to become prom queen. She doesn't really care about being prom queen so much, but she desperately needs the scholarship that is attached to it because she wants to go to this elite music school to study further, and she doesn't have the money to go on her own. At the same time, she's dealing with a few other things in her life, and she's crushing on the new girl in school, Mac, and this really sweet romance starts to build between them, but she discovers that Mac is on the prom court as well, and so now they're competing against one another. It's just such a fun story. I highly recommend it. It deals with some heavier issues while also keeping a lighter tone and really moving the story along. So it's really great if you're looking for something slightly happier ending at the moment.
Awesome. So last one I'm talking about is Forest of Souls, and this one is a fantastic fantasy. I really enjoyed it. Saoirse is a shaman born, and she appears to have come from nothing. She has been secretly training with this really, really good swordsman and just trainer. She's phenomenal. But again, it's been secret, and she has worked her way up to be the queen's next royal spy, which is like a huge honor, and everyone's really surprised. They don't know where she came from. She's shaman born, like I mentioned, and when you're born, you have gray eyes, and at a certain age, they change color, and you know like what you have a connection with your shaman abilities. And hers are these golden color, and that means a huge difference because it means she's a soul guide, which they have not had one in living memory. And so now she is kind of thrown into this journey of figuring out what that means. She is wanted, obviously, by all these different people for different reasons. She's the only one that can control the Deadwood, which is where the souls live and things like that. So now she is kind of torn between the path that she thought she was going to be on and the path that now that she is finding out she's a soul guide, what that means. I will warn you, there's a bit of violence. It gets very intense as she is trying to navigate and figure it out. Even this training that she has to do gets pretty violent sometimes. But once you get past that, the world building is phenomenal, and getting to know all the characters, they're just amazing. I really enjoyed it. It's rumored to be a trilogy in the end. This one just came out, so I'm looking forward to a second one. But again, if you want a really good world building fantasy, Forest of Souls, I highly recommend.
Shifting gears entirely, my last book is realistic and it deals with some pretty heavy subject matter. It's called Not Hungry. And the main character, June, she is fat and she has an eating disorder. And so there's some content warnings here: eating disorders, sexual harassment, bullying, stuff like that. These are the types of issues this book deals with. So know that going in, be prepared. It's also written in verse. So if you've read stuff by like Kwame Alexander, crossover, things like that, same style. And I really liked the way the format worked for this. And it's the story of June. She's in high school. Her sister May is also fat, but her sister does not have an eating disorder. And June kind of keeps her eating disorder like it is a big secret. She does not let people know. And part of her disorder is that she binges, which is, if you're not familiar, that is when you kind of throw up. You make yourself throw up after you've eaten something. And nobody assumes that she has an eating disorder because she's overweight. And so people kind of figure there's no way that you could be sick, right? They don't see it the same way someone who is very, very emaciated with an eating disorder gets noticed. And this is her story of kind of trying to, one, keep her secret, but two, like figure stuff out at school. There's a new kid who has moved in next door and he kind of discovers her secret. And the two of them slowly start to form kind of a friendship. There's like almost like a hint of romance. And this is just sort of that day-to-day look at what it is like to live with an eating disorder, what it is like to kind of figure yourself out and figure out your relationships with the people around you. It's really well written, but also just know pretty heavy reading.
My last one is also completely different, shifting gears again. It's nonfiction. It's called Into the Blizzard by Michael Tugias. And this one is a great choice if you are fascinated by a lot of the like really extreme and intense weather that we've been having lately. It is actually about the Great Blizzard of 1978 that happened off the coast of Massachusetts. And it follows specifically this one captain and the crew of his ship. He had a little kind of schooner ship that he would take out, and it follows the events as this blizzard developed, and this ship, these guys in the schooner went out because a cargo ship was stranded out on the shoals off of the coast, and they sent out a mayday call, and they were not going to survive the blizzard. And so Frank Quirk and the crew of the Can-Do went out to try to rescue them. And if you like books like I Survived, really intense survival stories, I highly recommend this one because it breaks down hour by hour as they were communicating back with the Coast Guard, and then what developed when they lost communication with the Can-Do and what happened to the crew. They mostly didn't survive. I will give you that heads up going in. It's history, so it's not really a secret, but it's just a fascinating look at what things like the perfect storm and hurricanes and blizzards can do, the destruction they can wreak. So that is Into the Blizzard by Michael Tugias.
So thank you for watching today. We hope you found some sort of book that you find intriguing. We will have some more videos coming out later this year, so hopefully you can join us, and we hope you have a good rest of your day.
Bye. Thank you.